Get off of my loader.
The images are all too familiar.
Hey, ah! Get off my loader.
It has been like this for over 2 decades.
We all stay on the road. They can't arrest us all.
When there is a war in the woods, it's all the same.
What is your intention, Diana?
I'm afraid I feel morally compelled to do what I can to stop the destruction of this forest.
There are loggers. There are protesters. In BC's latest battle over a forest, it's those same two sides squaring off, with one difference. In this dispute in the Elaho Valley, there is another player, a third party that's making for a highly unusual alliance.
In very short order, you could be at the gateway to Canada's newest national park.
Suzanne Denbach is the leader of that other side, the Whistler Resort Association. The other side is business.
It will rise quickly to the top of the political agenda.
Business may speak a different language of market leverage and selling features, but it wants what environmentalists want: preservation of the forest next to the world-renowned resort. The Whistler Resort Association likes the idea of a national park at its doorstep so much that it's hired a consultant to list the benefits. But that list will be at loggerheads with a motion just passed by Squamish, which doesn't like the idea of a park at all. What's at the center of this debate is not the park, but money.
One need only look at Banff to understand that a national park attracts millions of visitors and hundreds of millions of dollars in spending to the local economy. The forest industry directly, the industry themselves, contribute over 30% of our annual property taxes. So that's a huge amount of money.
With that in mind, this week, Squamish Council unanimously passed a motion. It will not participate in any initiative to increase the amount of protected forest in this region. This region is a huge chunk of the Lower Mainland called the Stoltmann Wilderness. Just a 3-hour drive from Vancouver, it's a 500,000 hectare stretch of wild country.
New meaning to the word tree hugger.
It includes some of the oldest trees in Western Canada, marshlands and high alpine, and it's home to a range of wildlife including black bears, grizzlies, wolves, and eagles.
And that's something that sells extremely well in our overseas markets.
And really old trees sell extremely well as logs. This is where International Forest Products harvests timber.
This was a difficult decision.
3 years ago, a government-appointed advisory committee of industry reps, environmentalists, and politicians came up with a protected areas plan for the Lower Mainland. 13.8% of the land was proclaimed protected.
The protected areas have been established and it's done, but I think that the province needs to be more vocal. They need to get out there and communicate that better.
Then how is it that we're back to this? Well, because the Western Canada Wilderness Committee didn't participate in that park planning process.
It was a piece of fluff. In our opinion, it was a sham process, and it's what's put us these years later in a conflict in the Elaho Valley.
But in agreement with Whistler's business community,
we believe this a national park would be an economic boon and an ecological savior to the region.
Whistler now sees approximately 2 million visitors a year.
There is greater potential for growth with that national park on our doorstep.
That park and the 2010 Olympic bid, they're all tied together.
Part of what we have as a competitive advantage, because destination marketing is incredibly competitive, is that wilderness experience.
It sounds nice, but I think the practicalities of it and what it means and the ramifications, are worthy of investigation. I'm hoping that perhaps the study will, shed some light on that.
That's what Squamish hopes too. It has no intention of saying goodbye to forestry.
An average wage in the forest is $50,000 a year. That's an average wage. Those fellows make between $20 and $24 an hour. But the way I see it today is were we to see a national park created in that area, for every job that's out there now, we would need to, right now, have 3. Because the service sector pays basically in the neighborhood of $8 an hour. Can I get a copy of that?
And so it won't participate in Whistler's park study due in 4 weeks.
I think that even if they continue to say no, we're going to continue with the study, and hopefully that we can still open up some dialogue.
Dialogue that might not go far at all. The federal government has no interest in declaring this a national park. The provincial government says
all of them came to a consensus and signed that agreement and saying this completes our process. And I'm not going to second guess that.
And there's always the issue of native land claims. Despite all of that, environmentalists feel good about their new ally in business.
The natural biodiversity of British Columbia, that's their competitive edge in the global tourism market.
You might want to leave that up and use that for customer celebration.
Suzanne Denbach is off to sell Whistler at a North American tourism conference in Mexico City. On this trip, she'll talk about the mountains and the skiing, with hopes that on another trip in the future, she'll talk about her resort being the gateway to Canada's newest national park. For Broadcast One, I'm Belle Puri.